He started to hurt Lola at midnight. He did not stop when Sinead James nearly caught him in the act when she heard Lola scream at midnight.
Attack at the hands of her mother's new partner, Kyle Bevan, that she prioritised her relationship with her new partner.
Kyle Bevan and Sinead James met in February 2020 when Kyle made a friend request to her on Facebook. After exchanging messages, they met in person, and within a matter of days, Bevan was living in the family home. Then, suddenly, Kyle launched a savage attack on Lola James in July 2020 after the toddler's mother failed to protect her following months of abuse. I'm now going to tell you the full story. Make sure you wait till the end where I go through a step-by-step date breakdown of all the atrocities that occurred. The prosecution said Lola should have been safe in her own home, and that Sinead allowed a violent and destructive man into their lives and failed to protect her child. While the court also heard text messages from Sinead and Bevan that said Lola was doing her head in and that she would throw her out of the window. As Lola lay dying, Kyle Bevan tried to blame the family dog for her death and used the little girl's final hours to cover his tracks instead of calling for an ambulance. He filmed disturbing pictures and videos of Lola showing marks on her back and swelling and bruising to her head, eyes and lips. One doctor who examined Lola said she was the most injured and bruised child they had ever seen during their career. Sinead had been warned her boyfriend was dangerous just 8 days before he carried out the fatal attack, when his ex-partner's mother messaged Sinead on Facebook to say that Kyle was a child protection risk. She said, "I'm concerned about the fact that he is around your child." Lola herself died in hospital 4 days after the attack on July the 17th, 2020. Lola's mother, Sinead, was a victim of domestic abuse and had been educated twice on how to spot signs of an abuser. But she chose to prioritize her relationship with Kyle over her child's safety. She had been told by the local authority not to invite adults into the family home if she did not know them well or if they were alcohol or drug abusers, but she ignored their advice. Sinead had tried to check on Kyle Bevan's previous history of domestic abuse through Clare's Law, but he refused to reveal his date of birth. Clare's Law allows someone who has experienced domestic abuse to go to the police and have them conduct a background check of someone who they find threatening. Bevan had moved into the same month social services visited and raised concerns about the conditions of the filthy house. However, authorities failed to return before the child's death. Throughout the sentencing hearing at the Swansea Crown Court, Bevan remained expressionless and showed no emotion as he was jailed for life for murdering Lola. Her mother remained tearful throughout the sentencing and cried when she was jailed for 6 years. The court heard that Bevan had a Jekyll and Hyde personality who regularly used amphetamines, Xanax, Valium and cannabis. During the 4-week trial, the court heard how they met on Facebook in February 2020 and that Kyle remained living in the house throughout the COVID pandemic, during which Lola suffered a number of injuries while in his sole care, including a damaged nose, black eyes and a cut lip. On text, Bevan wrote to Sinead, "Too many kids in the house, just doing my head in." He later claimed that Lola fell out of her cot while she was under his care. Kyle told Sinead she was stood in her cot and she dropped to the floor really quickly. She bit her lip on the way down. "I tried to help, but she kicked off. I feel like you just don't trust me anymore." Well, duh, why would anyone trust you, Muppet? He said, "Lola needs to get used to me, babe. I am not the devil. I think the world of that little girl." Sinead herself previously admitted Bevan petrified her and had previously used a hammer to smash up her home after consuming Xanax and alcohol. In the trial, jurors heard how the couple both took amphetamines when the children were at James' mother's house. When police asked Sinead in January 2021 what steps she had taken to protect Lola, the mother said she never thought her daughter was in any major danger. She maintained that her daughter was safe with her. Jurors were told that Kyle Bevan launched a murderous attack on Lola after staying up with her and taking pictures of her on Snapchat. After the fatal attack, Bevan covered his tracks rather than call for an ambulance, which may have saved her life. He searched the internet for information about head injuries before taking photos of her limp body. He then rang his mother, a healthcare worker, who raised the alarm on March 17, 2020. Now, while Lola was being rushed to hospital, Bevan concocted a story about how the toddler was knocked down the stairs by the family dog despite a baby gate on her room. Bevan claimed he was innocent, but refused to give evidence during the trial. The jury was shown photographs that he had taken on his phone of marks on Lola's back and extensive swelling and bruising to her head, eyes, and lips. A disturbing video that he sent to his mother showed him picking up Lola's limp body, attempting to stand her on her feet before letting her fall to the floor. Bevan did not ask his mother to phone for an ambulance for Lola until almost 7:30 a.m., having only woken Sinead up at about 7:20 a.m. More than 100 scratches and bruises were recorded on Lola's body, and she also had extensive damage to both her eyes, with the injuries to her brain comparable with those found in a car crash victim. Judge Justice Griffith said he was sure that Bevan was responsible for multiple assaults on Lola before her tragic murder. He said, "I am satisfied the attack was an exercise of power over the only person he could feel superior to, a helpless child. The assault was sustained, deliberate, and very violent, and involved the use of weapons. By the time of the murder, Sinead knew that Bevan was not to be trusted with Lola." The judge said, the day before, Lola was abused into a coma. In the early hours of the following day, Bevan assaulted Lola, striking her to the side of the head, with such force that she suffered bleeding on the brain and bleeding in the ear, and shook her back and forth with such force she suffered brain damage. Sinead told the court how she heard a bang and a scream coming from Lola's bedroom just after midnight, and ran there to find her daughter sitting on Bevan's lap with no visible injuries. She described how Bevan reassured her, saying, "I've got this," before she went back to bed. Hours later, she was woken by Bevan saying that Lola had fallen down the stairs, showing her a piece of the little girl's tongue on his finger. Huh? Sinead dialed 999 in tears after finding her daughter unresponsive on the sofa, telling operators that Lola's face appeared swollen and she was really scared. In hospital, Bevan became aggressive with doctors who questioned him over Lola's injuries. Speaking following the sentencing, senior Crown Prosecutor John Griffith from the CPS said Lola was a happy and beautiful little girl that was bursting with energy. Her life had barely started when these defendants snatched it away from her. The judge said Bevan has shown no remorse for what he has done and that he has only shown concern for himself. He added that Lola James was described by her grandmother as a character who loved life. Her father said she was always smiling and happy, a little ray of sunshine. The judge said, "But you, Kyle Bevan, murdered her when she was only 2 years old, and you, Sinead James, allowed her death." Of course, Bevan denied that he had harmed Lola, instead claiming that it was a dog. As for Bevan's lawyer, John Hipkin, he said there was little or no mitigation he could offer for his client after his conviction for murder. And it was revealed in the trial that Sinead did not go to the police regarding Bevan because of all the abuse she experienced beforehand from previous partners, and she was scared. As for the day of the murder, Lola's grandmother had been due to babysit on that day but was feeling ill at that time. She told the court she blamed herself for what happened and was left wondering why she didn't spot the domestic abuse earlier. She said, "I sit outside her house every night talking to Lola's star in the sky and telling her about everything that has happened that day." Lola would spend happy days in the garden eating the strawberries and apples. She was a cheeky monkey and never happier then wearing her wellies, playing outside, caked in mud. Lola's heartbroken father, Daniel Thomas, he said Lola was as bright as the garden sun. She was beautiful, charming, and cheeky. Her laugh would fill the room with pure joy. As a parent, I could only hope that for Lola would continue to grow, be happy, and health, but I was not there to help her. He said, Lola didn't just die. She wasn't just taken from me in the worst possible way. She was brutally attacked. Lola's little life was filled with filth and chaos at the hands of her mother, who couldn't provide for her. The guilt I feel lives inside and will never leave. Her memory will last forever. All I have been left with is guilt, heartache, and pain. So now, let me break down everything that happened, date by date. So on September the 30th, 2017, Lola James is born. On January 2020, a multi-agency referral is submitted by health visitor Leslie Stedman after reports of a domestic incident involving Sinead's former partner at her home. It's unclear whether this was the father, Daniel. Now on February the 10th, 2020, Stedman, the same local worker, carries out her last face-to-face visit with Sinead at the property due to COVID. She said she raised concerns about the condition of the house, and Sinead raised concerns about Lola's behavior and that she thought Lola may have ADHD. Now in February 2020, Bevan and Sinead strike up a relationship online, which timing-wise I think was just before lockdown. Bevan moves in with Sinead and her children at their home a day after meeting each other. He remains in the house throughout the first months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now on April the 19th, 2020, Facebook messages between Bevan and Sinead reveal Lola suffered a bloodied nose while in Bevan's care. On April the 26th, 2020, Facebook messages between the couple show Lola suffered a grazed chin while in Bevan's care. He blames it on her falling over. On May the 4th, 2020, Bevan sends Sinead a Facebook message saying Lola cut her lip by falling from her bed. On May the 14th, 2020, Bevan is alleged to have used a hammer to smash up parts of the house and try to headbutt Sinead. Sinead then fled with the children and takes them to her friend's house. On May the 15th, 2020, Bevan messages Sinead apologizing for his behavior. On July the 5th, 2020, James' friend, Miss Morgan, sees Lola with bruised legs while in the park. On July the 7th, 2020, Miss Morgan witnesses Bevan pushing a pram, carrying a child, into the road in anger. She believed he was under the influence of drugs. On July the 9th, 2020, Lola sustained an injury to the bridge of her nose, which also caused her eyes to appear bruised. Bevan claimed she fell off the couch. On July the 16th, 2020, Sinead James claimed she went to bed by 8 p.m., leaving Lola with Bevan. Bevan stays up late with Lola, taking pictures of her using Snapchat. He then claimed he put her to bed. Past midnight on July the 17th, 2020, a few minutes after midnight specifically, Sinead says she heard a bang and a scream and found Bevan comforting Lola in her bedroom. He tells her Lola has struck her head, but he's dealing with it. At this moment, Sinead goes back to bed. At 4:26 a.m., Lola is known to be conscious and upright because of a picture Bevan takes of injuries to her back. 2 hours later, at 6:30 a.m., Bevan begins searching the internet for information about babies sustaining head impacts. Police later believe this is an indication that the assault had just taken place. He also searched for loss of consciousness, which comes up with the website healthchildren.org. At 6:37 a.m., Bevan takes a screenshot of a website providing him with clear guidance that he should seek emergency medical help if a child displays symptoms such as excessive bruising or swelling or loss of consciousness. You muppet, you don't need a website to tell you that. You should have gotten help. Then, two photographs taken by Bevan at 6:38 and 6:39 a.m. show Lola's head, eyes and lips extremely swollen. She appears to be unconscious. At 6:40 a.m., Bevan calls his mother, but she does not answer. He claims he did so because she is a nurse. Miss Bevan is in fact a non-medically trained healthcare support worker. Bevan continues trying to contact his mother, including sending her the photographs. She at the time though was asleep and she did not reply until 6:55 a.m. Seeing the pictures, she tells him, "Get to the hospital now." Again, which muppet needed this advice at the time? Any normal sane person would have gone straight away. At 6:58 a.m., Bevan sends his mother a disturbing 22-second film of him trying to prop up a clearly unconscious and severely injured Lola. When she inevitably falls to the floor with a thud, he comments, "She's gone. She's gone." At 7 a.m., Miss Bevan sends another message urging her son to wake up Sinead and seek medical help. She continues to message Bevan for another 13 minutes, but is no longer replying. At around 7:20 a.m., Sinead says Bevan woke her up and tells her Lola has fallen down the stairs, and shows her a piece of Lola's tongue on his finger. What the fuck? Sinead then calls her mother at 7:26 a.m. Then at 7:28 a.m., nearly an hour after the internet searches, Bevan asks his mother to call an ambulance. He claims he cannot make the call himself and tells his mother he has told Sinead he has called for an ambulance already. Emergency services operators receive a 999 call from his mother at 7:29 a.m. At 7:30 a.m., Sinead makes a call to the NHS and she describes Lola's face as swollen and says she is really scared. Shortly afterwards, Bevan again uses his phone to take photographs and videos of Lola, who is unresponsive and visibly injured, lying on the sofa. An ambulance is dispatched at 7:32 a.m. Sinead misses 4 calls from the ambulance. At 7:34 a.m., paramedics arrived, and at this stage, Lola is unconscious but alive. And Bevan told the paramedics, "I think the dog tripped her over." Lola is transferred by ambulance to the hospital, and it's there that Bevan becomes aggressive with doctors who are asking questions about Lola's injuries. Lola is then transferred to the University Hospital in Wales and arrives there at 11:15 a.m. Police officers are at the scene at 11:17 a.m, capturing their conversation with Bevan through body-worn video cameras. He claimed that Lola was pushed down the stairs by the dog and says he only feels partly responsible because he was making her a bowl of cereal at the time. At 3:15 p.m, Bevan messages Sinead asking her what she's going to tell the police. And this message, the prosecution said it was Bevan making sure that both of their accounts were consistent. At 4:34 p.m, Sinead is arrested on suspicion of child neglect. And 4:37 p.m, Bevan is also arrested. Both are questioned. Consultant community pediatrician Dr. Nia John, who works in the hospital's pediatric critical care unit, visits Lola at 5 p.m. and notes 101 surface injuries to her body. This clearly was not a dog. She also notes swelling to the toddler's head, eyes and lips, and bleeding from her ears, which is a sign of serious head trauma. She considers Lola's injuries to be highly suspicious and non-accidental. And between July the 17th and July the 18th, police crime scene investigators attend the house and find that despite the fact that the house is dirty and untidy, the bathroom, however, appears to be spotless as though recently cleaned. Officers recovered a child's wet vomit and blood-stained grey onesie which was found in the corner of the living room. During this time, Bevan sent abusive text messages to Lola's biological father, Dan Thomas. And then on July the 21st, 2020, Lola dies at hospital as a result of catastrophic injuries. She was 2 years and 10 months old. So on January the 18th, 2021, Bevan is arrested on suspicion of murder. On January the 25th, Sinead is rearrested on suspicion of murder and again released on conditional bail. On April the 21st, Bevan and Sinead are rearrested and charged with murder for causing or allowing the death of a child. On June the 29th, 2022, Bevan and Sinead pled not guilty to the charges against them at Swansea Crown Court. Bevan remained in custody while Sinead is released on bail. On March the 7th, the 4-week trial began, and on April the 4th, the jury returns its verdict after 10 hours, finding Bevan guilty of murder and Sinead James guilty of causing or allowing Lola's death. And on April the 25th, Bevan is sentenced to 28 years to life in prison, and Sinead is sentenced to 6 years. You know, the mother, why would you allow some random person to move into your house after a day or a week or however long it was? What the hell? Who does that? Particularly someone who, unfortunately, has experienced so much domestic abuse. You could say, well, she should have been more cautious. But that's quite a harsh statement because, well, maybe it traumatized her so much. It's unfair for me to judge her on that. But she's certainly complicit in the death of her child. As for Kyle, the guy's just a muppet, and I can only imagine the kind of abuse he's now experiencing in prison. Anyway, comment. Tell me what you think.